This is just PowerPoint. It has a screen record. All right, so listen up, you guys. So, a couple things. So, in my notebook, we should be on page. Oh my goodness! Ouch, that hurt. 74, 75. So before you go and glue this down or tape it down, I'm going to start on 75 right here. So 75. So now these are the notes. This page right here is actually notes here. This is going to go on top of it because this is going to be how to actually do a lot of these things. Okay, so it's going to go on top of it like this. So notas right here. So I know no one's playing on their phone right now because they're actually paying attention to me. Yes, earbuds out, right? Thank you. So I know you're paying attention.
No one's trying to get that little portion.
Thank you. All right. So this is going to be the notes. We're going to fill this one out here. But first thing, I'm going to talk about this because this one right here is going to be my practice. So this is going to be the practice for this. All right, so the first thing I need to go over is, if I find mine. Oh, here it is. All right. Okay, so we're going to go through a couple of these things, and they're very, very, very important. Okay, so I'm going to start this, and we're going to add a couple things to these. So I got to zoom this one out. I apologize to those two people that are actually watching the videos. So I don't want you guys to get motion sickness because I'm moving the thing. All right, a couple things that we need to add to this. We're going to add a sometimes. Always, and never. Okay, so now I have these and I have basic properties with this, but it actually doesn't list all the properties. All the properties is for the next page. It's the next page because we're going to actually have a whole lot of things to write all these things down. Okay, so a couple things. This is a flow chart. And if you notice, the arrows are floating down, right? Yes. Okay, since they're floating down. So let's start at the very bottom. Okay? If I start at the bottom, if it goes up from here, it is a always. So going up is always. So going up is always. So is a square a rectangle? Yes, and you would say when?
Always.
Always. Is a square a rhombus?
No. Yes.
Look, it's going down to it, right? So if it's going up this way, if there is a flow to it, if it's going up, it is always. Now, if it is, the next thing I'm going to talk about is never. So never is it in the same branch? Here's these branches here. So is a square a right kite?
No.
No. It's going to be a never. So they're in different branches, right? Different branches. So is a rectangle a rhombus?
No. Yes.
Look at the branches. They break off. They're on opposite sides, aren't they? They're opposite sides. So this is going to be a never. A rectangle is not a rhombus. You cannot say a rectangle is a rhombus. Do you know why? Rhombus has all four sides the same. A rectangle has to have opposite sides the same, but they're not going to be the same length. So these don't go together. So these are never. Just like, is a parallelogram a trapezoid? No. And you would say how often? Never. That's a never. And then sometimes is going down. So going down. So is a quadrilateral a parallelogram?
Sometimes.
Yes, it is sometimes. I'm telling you, it's on the test just like this, and I believe this thing should be in your handy dandy also. Remember the big page in your handy dandy? You guys kept asking how to fold that? Yeah, it looks just like this, right? This is the flow chart. This is what you're adding to it. Sometimes, always, and never. So if it goes up, it's always. If it goes down, it's sometimes. And if it's in a different branch, it is never. So is an isosceles trapezoid a right trapezoid?
Never.
That's a never. Is that pretty easy, you guys? I'm hoping, yes, right? Any questions before I move on to the next set of notes? Yeah. So we're gonna fill this one in here. We're gonna fill this in. So are we okay with this now? So this is gonna be your reference in your notebook for this. Alright, so now we're gonna take a look at this thing right here. Now we're gonna talk about a couple things here. So each day we're gonna actually talk about a couple of these because there's too many to do all at once. Now, what do you think this thing right here is?
Trapezoid.
Parallelogram.
What is it?
Parallelogram.
How do you know it's a parallelogram?
Because the lines are parallel.
Both pairs are opposite.
Both pairs of opposite are what?
Parallel.
Parallel. That's what I need. These see right here, the arrows signify that they are parallel to each other. These arrows, so this is a parallelogram. Okay. So if it's a parallelogram, what else is it?
It's also
quadrilateral.
A quadrilateral. Okay, from here, right? If it's a parallelogram, it'll always be a quadrilateral also, right? So it is a parallelogram and it is a quadrilateral. Questions on that?
So, okay, I have a question.
Yes.
So after you identify what kind of shape it is, do you go up from there?
Yeah, then just go up, right? Because we're looking for always. What is it? That's what we're looking for. Make sense? Yeah. Hey, look, it's almost exactly like my practice that I'm going to have over here.
So what unit? What are we doing?
Okay, so now for this one right here, this one's going to be properties of quadrilaterals. So my table of contents, thank you, I forgot to mention that. Table of contents is going to have this on it, right? Properties of quadrilaterals. All right, okay. Let's take a look at this next one. What do you think this one is? Is it isosceles?
No.
How would you be able to know it's isosceles?
Because they would have
Non-parallel sides.
Okay, it's got parallel sides, but what about the other sides?
they wouldn't be.
What's that say? Non-parallel sides are congruent. If you notice, the congruent markings are the tick marks, right? Is that pretty straightforward? So this one has to be what? Is there a right angle there?
No.
So this one's only. So if it's a trapezoid, it's also what? Quadrilateral. All right. Last one down at the bottom. Kite. Okay. Is it only kite? Can it be a right kite?
No,
Why is it not a right kite?
no right angle.
No right angles in the corners, right? So this one's just going to be a kite. And what else?
Quadrilateral.
There we go. Pretty straightforward, right? So, hopefully, it is easy. Yes.
Why is that not a right kite? Like, I don't understand.
Okay, look at right kite. What does a right kite need?
It needs lines in the
What
middle.
page is it on?
It needs what?
A right angle.
With the right angle. So is it going to be, is there a right angle here?
Yeah. Mister, so if it's a right kite, it's always gonna have the little sway.
Yeah, it'll have it. That's what we
So
need.
if it doesn't, it's not.
Yeah, if it doesn't have it, then it's not it. Kind of like the right trapezoid. It has to have a right angle.
Mister, can we get confused with kite and rhombus?
Kite and rhombus. Let me see.
'Cause, like,
Okay, if you notice, rhombus, parallelogram, so the opposite sides are parallel. So everything that a parallelogram is, this is also. So the opposite sides are parallel. Right here, these are parallel to each other. These are parallel to each other. These are congruent to each other. And these are congruent. So all four sides are congruent. So in a kite, are all four sides congruent? No, that's why. All four are not congruent because these two are congruent to each other and those ones are congruent. You notice they're not congruent to each other over here, right? This, each one is congruent to the other. That's why. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. And the opposite sides are parallel. All right, let's take a look at that practice.
What page is it on?
What did I say, 75? Yeah, this is 75. So on the practice, you're just doing the same thing we just did. Okay, you're identifying all these right here. So, 8. So this one right here, it says, determine the most precise. It doesn't say actually list them all. What's the most precise? On number 8, what do you think the most precise is going to be?
Rectangle.
That's a rectangle. Very good.
How about number 11?
What about it?
Is it rhombus?
So if you look, they're all the same, aren't they?
Yeah.
And what do those arrows signify?
Corresponding.
Parallel. Arrows mean that they're parallel. So those are parallel, and those are parallel, and all four sides are the same. That's going to be a rhombus. Does that make sense? Okay,
Page is that on?
let's flip it over.
This button.
Yes.
Page is that on?
This is 74. Okay, on this one right here. Now, in all these right here, they're all quadrilaterals. They all have four sides, right? So their sum of the angles is 360. So the sum of the angles is 360. So if I know that all four of these angles together have to add up to 360, what would I do to find one?
Add them up and subtract them.
Very good. Add them up, subtract from 360. So in this case right here, please go ahead and do that. So if I were to do the algebra on this, it'd be 105 plus 75 plus 100 plus x equals 360.
Joseph for you.
Almost done. Alright, so now on this one right here, so if I added those together, yeah, subtract from 360, so it's 105, dang it. 105 plus 75 plus 100, so 360 minus 280, right?
80.
80?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So x equals 80 degrees. ¿Está muy fácil?